Hello there. So what I want to show you is how you do proper debugging, but also recovering from errors in Workato. So let's say we have this use case. I have this spreadsheet that I want to synchronize. This is just a context that has been created from a form response, and I want to synchronize them in Salesforce. But sometimes those contacts will fail because they miss some critical fields like last name for Salesforce, and well, it will just create an error log. But how do you actually recover from that error log and still synchronize them and maybe write like last name is missing, maybe still keep the Maria and their phone number. So let's create that recipe from scratch. Sync contacts with error recovery and handling. There we go. And I'll select the app that's called spreadsheets and I'll do the real time. I'll just select quickly do my contact spreadsheet, my sheet is called form responses, and I will do all my third columns. So the first thing I want to do is I want to start handling the errors. So the first is that whenever there is an error, it will fall over to this block. And the first thing I want to do, I will create a very simple error message that will log internally in Workato. So drag, you see here, there's error type and error message. I'll drag the error message here and make sure it's actually sent to Workato internal log service. Then another thing I want to do is actually send out an email. So go here, send an email, and customize this email, say contact, maybe something like first name has failed to sync to Salesforce. And then maybe include also the actual error message. Error message, this one, error type, this one, and then maybe recipe link. You can include that as well. Then recipe job that failed. They can include the job URL so they can immediately go to that one. And then here in the email itself, so for example, you could include the creator of that email or of that recipe, or you can just include your own email that you want, like that. So now we're ready to uh, handle or well actually insert the records, but the last step actually you should do is you need to stop this job as failure and make sure you just include the error message. In this case, you will stop the job success. So here, this is on all the handling that is being done is just to cover this step. It will be in here for Salesforce. So select the Salesforce connector, just create a simple record, select the connection that we already have, and then we'll select the object that is called contact. We'll automatically go into mapping interface, just map the fields that I find automatically. So you see I found last name, email, and first name. The last name is required. So whenever Salesforce gets an empty last name, it will just fail the job. It will not like accept that API call. So you hit the save button, and what we'll do, we'll just immediately start the recipe and see what happens. And then we'll try to recover. Okay, so here in the background, I see that some records are being now generated. Go, generated one by one, good. And I see that I'm getting a couple of emails here as well. So let's take a look first at the emails. So first of all, I'm getting 3 notifications. Why 3 is because 1, 2, 3. So 3 jobs has failed. And I see that error message last name must be present and error type is missing. And here's a link, and here's the actual job link that I can go to. Okay, good. Then this is the same one, and this is the same one, and this. So this is an error that I got as an admin, which is a general error setting that happens automatically in Workato. And you see that there is a stop processing last name must be present, and here's the error ID, and you can again have a link to Workato. How that email was generated is from the settings, and it's actually here under the from the settings, and here under notifications, you have something that's called primary admins, technical admins, and also error notification recipients. So you can send out, for example, errors to even specific projects or for all projects to this global email, so that even if people forget to do this error handling in here, you will always make sure that you can still get this summary of all errors that has been created to some single administrator. Okay, so now let's go back to those jobs. So this is how it actually looks like, right? So you see all the successful ones as like this. You can go and of course inspect it. Like here is the input data, here's what happened when you created it, here's the data that you sent to Salesforce, so that's all fine. But what you get also is the 3 errors ones. And how do you make sure that this data still goes to Salesforce, but with a, say, a manual fix, right? You should not need to create another recipe just to handle those 3 errors. You should be able just to rerun it. And how we do it in Workato is you use this repeat action job. So if you just repeat it like now as it is, what it will do is that it will remember the data that came in here and will try to rerun the recipe with exactly the same data. Of course, if I do it right now, it will just fail. What we want to do is we want to go to edit recipe, and we want to fix this error so it doesn't fail, but actually does something else. So as an example, we can do a couple of steps. So you can do a simple if condition and say, for example, if the last name uh, is uh, is not present, then you just fail that job, or actually skip it. You don't do anything. But what we also actually want to do is that instead of this if statement, you can go into it in here immediately in line as a last name. So we'll go and switch to formula. And we'll do as I will check, is this present? If it's not, I'll do this kind of quotation. I'll say, well, if it's not present, or if it actually is present, then I'll just do as usual, then the last name. And if it's not, then I'll write no last name, like that. And then I just hit the save button. So what we'll do is if there is no last name, if there is a last name, it will just write the last name as it is. If there is no last name, we'll just provide this string as the last name so that we can still continue creation of the record with all the additional other information that it contains, but without the last name. Hit exit, and again, I'll just start the recipe. So this recipe will not rerun all the records automatically because it understands that those records already been running, so it will not try to create duplicates. So what you need to do to recover from those 3 errors, you just simply select 1, 2, 3, and then hit this repeat job, and it will rerun with the same data, but with the updated recipe version. Okay, and then we'll go in here, we will refresh this, and you see there's Emma, John, Maria, no last name, which is this Maria, John, Emma. And what we'll actually do here also in the work log is that it will put all those reruns as non-red, right? So you can very quickly yourself with your own eyes just inspect like what has failed or what is successful, and it will also remove these failed jobs from this counter so that you know that all jobs has been running well. And then it will also be visible in your dashboards. For example, here you will see that in this hour they had 3 failed jobs and then had 3 successful ones. And then you see like a summary that 9 of them were successful because, well, I rerun it, and then 0 is failed. So here is some additional error handling that you can do. So we'll create another folder that is called recipe ops. And we'll create another recipe that will alert me when a job has failed. And what we'll do here, we'll use something that's called recipe ops by Workato. It is an administrative connector that connects, for example, and listens to Workato things. Like, for example, it will listen to whenever there's a job that has been failing, whenever there's a package deployed, whenever there is a recipe that has been started or stopped, or some other events that are supported here. So we'll do, for example, job failing, and then what we'll use here is the connector that is called just a Workato account connector. And if I just connect to my account and don't need to do anything, I can also connect to someone else's account. Then we need to provide an API key. And then it will say, please monitor on specific recipe ID or on all recipe. And then you can do a condition. So for example, you can do a condition that says, well, the title should only contain Salesforce. And then the same way as you do error handling, for example, you send out an email, you can again send out an email or create like a Splunk event, or if you use something like Datadog, you can create it from here and send those kinds of events to all the systems to alert them that something has failed. Does it make sense? And then from in the message you get a lot of like very similar information. Like for example, you can say the recipe that failed, and here is the recipe ID, and then job ID is this job ID, and so on. Then you can include also the more information by going back to recipe ops and say get recipe details, then provide an ID of the recipe that has failed. Then you will have access to even more information, like for example, the name of the recipe. Then you have also the how many times it has failed, or what is also the last run of that recipe, and some other information, like for example, the username and the user email that created the recipe. So also like a metadata information that you can send to your admin to inspect what is happening.